My name is Madison, and I am 28 years old. From the outside, my life probably looks perfect. I have a stable job as a data analyst at a technology company. I rent a comfortable apartment not far from downtown, earn enough money to enjoy small luxuries, and my co-workers often tell me how organized and successful I seem. If only they knew the truth. The hardest part of my life has never been my job. It has never been paying bills or meeting deadlines. The thing that drains me the most is my own family. For years, I believed family was supposed to support each other. I grew up hearing those words almost every day. Whenever someone needed help, everyone was expected to step in without asking questions. At least, that rule applied to me. I live only 30 minutes away from my parents. Close enough that they expect me to visit often, and close enough that saying no has never been easy. Every weekend, I told myself I would finally stand up for myself. Every weekend, I failed. My older sister, Laura, is 6 years older than me. She has been married to her husband, Mark, for several years, and they have 2 wonderful children, Ethan and Chloe. Those kids are the brightest part of my weekends. The moment they see me, they run toward me with huge smiles. Aunt Maddie. Their hugs always melt my heart. None of this is their fault. The problem has never been Ethan or Chloe. The problem has always been their parents. Almost every Saturday morning, usually around 9 o'clock, someone knocks on my apartment door. I already know who it is before I even open it. Laura stands there smiling as if she's doing me a favor. The kids are carrying backpacks full of toys, snacks, and extra clothes. Morning, she says cheerfully. The kids couldn't wait to spend the day with their favorite aunt. Before I can answer, she kisses them goodbye. Then she turns around and walks away. No discussion. No asking. No warning. Just gone. Sometimes she and Mark go shopping. Sometimes they spend the day at a spa. Sometimes they meet friends or enjoy a long lunch together. Meanwhile, I cancel whatever plans I had. By the time they return, it is usually late evening. My apartment is covered with toys. Pizza boxes are sitting on the table. The television has been on for hours. The children are exhausted, cranky, and arguing over everything. Laura walks inside looking completely refreshed. Thanks, she says with a smile, as if I volunteered for the job. Then she takes the kids home. At first, I didn't complain. I loved spending time with my niece and nephew. I convinced myself that helping family was simply the right thing to do. But helping someone once in a while is very different from becoming their unpaid babysitter every single weekend. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. My Saturdays disappeared. I stopped making plans with friends because I never knew when Laura would show up. I turned down invitations. I missed birthdays. I missed weekend trips. I even stopped dating because every Saturday was already spoken for. No one ever asked whether I had plans. They simply assumed my time belonged to them. One Sunday morning, after another exhausting weekend, I finally gathered enough courage to call Laura. "Can we talk?" I asked. "Sure," she replied casually. "I love Ethan and Chloe, but I really need some weekends for myself." There was complete silence. For a moment, I thought the call had disconnected. Then she laughed. "Seriously? I've been watching them almost every Saturday," I explained carefully. "Maybe we could share the responsibility or arrange another schedule." Her voice immediately changed. "Madison, I honestly can't believe you're saying this." I felt my stomach sink. "You don't understand what it's like to be a parent." "I know," I answered softly. "Mark and I both work all week," she continued. "The weekends are the only time we get to relax together. I work all week too. But you don't have children. I still get tired." She ignored that completely. "The kids adore you. You're lucky to spend so much time with them." Lucky. That word stayed in my head long after the conversation ended. I wasn't lucky. I was exhausted. A couple of weeks later, I decided to talk to my parents instead. Sunday dinner seemed like the perfect opportunity. The smell of roasted chicken filled the house, and everyone seemed relaxed. I waited until everyone had finished eating. "I wanted to ask something," I said carefully. My parents looked at me. I love Ethan and Chloe, but babysitting every weekend has become difficult. Could we maybe work out a schedule? Dad barely looked up from his plate. They're family. I know. So you help family. Mom sighed. Laura has a husband, children, and so many responsibilities. I understand that. You're single, Mom continued. You have more free time. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So because I'm single, my weekends don't matter. No one said that. It feels that way. Laura smiled before speaking. You can always see your friends another day. What if Saturday is the only day they're free? They'll understand. And what about me? I asked quietly. No one answered. Instead, Dad said something I had heard my entire life. Family comes first. I wanted to tell them that I was family too. But somehow, my needs never seemed to count. I smiled politely, finished my dinner, went home, then cried the entire drive back to my apartment. That night, I remembered something from years ago. I was 16. There was a huge family holiday gathering. Instead of letting me enjoy the celebration like everyone else, my parents handed me the responsibility of watching several younger cousins while the adults laughed, talked, and enjoyed themselves. I spent hours changing diapers, cleaning spills, and calming crying children. No one thanked me. No one even noticed. That was the first time I realized I wasn't treated like a daughter. I was treated like free childcare. 12 years later, nothing had changed. As the holiday season approached again, everyone around me seemed excited. Stores were decorated with bright lights. Music played everywhere. People talked about vacations, family dinners, and making memories. I smiled whenever someone asked about my plans. Inside, I already knew exactly how my holiday would go. I would cook. I would clean. I would entertain children. I would smile. And everyone else would relax. Then, one afternoon during the first week of December, my phone rang. It was Mom. Hi, sweetheart, she said happily. We're planning a big family holiday this year. I already had a bad feeling. Aunt Carol is bringing her 3 children, she continued excitedly. Your Uncle Mike and Aunt Sarah are coming with their 2 kids. Mark's parents will be there too, along with the rest of his family. We're expecting around 25 people. That sounds like a full house, I replied. It will be wonderful. I'm glad. There was a short pause. Whenever my mother paused like that, I knew she wanted something. So, she finally said, what would you like me to bring? Instead of answering immediately, I asked the question I should have asked years earlier. What exactly do you need me to do this time? There was another silence. Then Mom laughed. Oh, nothing too difficult. The moment she said those words, I knew my holiday was already being planned for me, not as a guest, not as a daughter, but once again as the person expected to do all the work while everyone else enjoyed themselves. That was the moment I decided something had to change. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to quietly accept whatever my family expected from me. This holiday would be different. They just didn't know it yet. Mom stayed quiet for a moment, and I knew she was about to ask me for something. I was wondering if you could help with the holiday dinner, she said gently. Of course, I replied. What do you need? She let out a small sigh. I don't think I can cook for everyone this year. There are just too many people coming. How many? Around 25. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. That's a lot. It is, she agreed. I thought maybe you could order food from a nice restaurant instead. You have a good job now, sweetheart. Things have been a little difficult for the rest of us. I slowly leaned back in my office chair. My computer screen was filled with charts and numbers, but I wasn't looking at any of them anymore. How much will it cost? I asked. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe around $2,000. $2,000. The number echoed in my head. That wasn't just money. It was months of saving. It was the vacation I had been planning for almost a year. I had dreamed about taking my first real trip by myself, somewhere quiet where I could relax without worrying about work or family. Now that money was about to disappear. Mom spoke again before I could answer. It would mean so much to everyone. We haven't all been together in such a long time. I closed my eyes. She always knew exactly what to say. She never demanded anything. Instead, she wrapped every request in guilt until saying no felt impossible. After a long silence, I finally whispered, "Okay." Her voice became cheerful immediately. "I knew I could count on you." I forced a smile even though she couldn't see it. "I'll take care of it." "Oh, thank you, sweetheart. You're such a thoughtful daughter. I'll send you everyone's favorite meals so you can include them." The call ended. I placed my phone on my desk and covered my face with both hands. I felt exhausted. Not physically. Emotionally. I kept telling myself it was only one holiday dinner. One expensive meal. One favor. That's how I always justified things. A week later, I received a phone call from the restaurant handling the order. "Hello, is this Madison Wilson?" the woman asked politely. "Yes. This is Emily from Romano's Catering. We have a small problem with your order." My heart skipped. "What happened?" "The honey-glazed ham you requested is no longer available. We can replace it with roasted turkey if that's acceptable." "Let me ask my family first." "No problem." After hanging up, I immediately called Mom. No answer. I tried Dad. Straight to voicemail. Then Laura. Nothing. I frowned. It wasn't like all three of them to ignore their phones at the same time. Something didn't feel right. Instead of waiting, I decided to stop by my parents' house after work. The streets were decorated with colorful holiday lights. Snow covered the sidewalks, and children were building snowmen in nearby yards. Normally those sights made me smile. That evening, they didn't. When I reached my parents' house, several cars were already parked outside. I assumed family members had stopped by to help with the holiday plans. Using my spare key, I quietly unlocked the front door. The house smelled like homemade stew and fresh bread. I smiled for a second. Then I heard my mother's voice. She was talking on the old landline in the living room. I wasn't trying to listen. But the moment I heard my name, I froze. "Don't worry," Mom laughed. "Madison will keep all the kids upstairs." I stopped breathing. "There will probably be 9 children altogether," she continued. "We'll set up movies, games, coloring books. She'll handle everything." Someone on the other end said something that made Mom laugh again. "Oh, she won't mind. She watches Laura's children every weekend anyway." Another laugh. "She's young, single, and has plenty of energy." My hands began shaking. I stood perfectly still. It suddenly made sense. No one had invited me because they wanted to spend time with me. They invited me because they needed free childcare. Again. The holiday wasn't meant for me. It was meant for everyone except me. While they laughed downstairs, ate delicious food, exchanged gifts, and enjoyed themselves, I was supposed to spend the entire evening chasing children around the upstairs bedrooms. Not one person had even asked if I was willing. They had already decided for me. I wrapped my fingers tightly around the scarf hanging around my neck. It had belonged to my grandmother. She used to tell me that people show you how much they value you by the way they treat your time. Standing in that hallway, I finally understood what she had meant. My family didn't value my time at all. To them, my weekends belonged to them. My holidays belonged to them. Even my money belonged to them. I quietly stepped backward toward the front door. Then I heard footsteps coming closer. Mom appeared around the corner. "Oh," she said with fake surprise. "Madison, I didn't know you were coming." I forced a smile. "The catering company called." She blinked. "They're out of honey-glazed ham. They can substitute roasted turkey." She barely thought about it. "Turkey is fine." "Are you sure?" "Whatever you decide is perfect." She smiled warmly. The kind of smile people wear when they believe they're getting exactly what they want. I smiled back. "Okay." Then I left. The moment I reached my car, I locked the doors. I sat there in complete silence. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my fingers turned white. For years I had ignored little signs. Little disappointments. Little moments that hurt. But this wasn't little anymore. This was planned. Every single detail had already been arranged. Without me. Without asking. Without caring how I felt. As soon as I got home, I picked up my phone. I called Romano's Catering. This is Madison Wilson. Hello again. I need to cancel my holiday order. There was a short pause. Cancel the entire order? Yes. I'm sorry to tell you that because the holiday is so close, we won't be able to issue a full refund. I understand. You'll receive about half your payment back. That's okay. Are you certain? I've never been more certain about anything. After hanging up, I stared at the confirmation email. Losing part of the money hurt. But strangely, I felt free. For the first time in years, I had chosen myself. As I sat quietly on my couch, another memory suddenly came back to me. Months earlier, my college roommate Jessica had called. My family is spending the holidays at our mountain cabin, she had said excitedly. Come with us. Without thinking, I had refused. I already have family plans. Jessica hadn't argued. She simply said, the invitation is always open. I opened my contacts and found her number. She answered after the second ring. Madison, do you still have room for one more guest? She laughed. Seriously? Very serious. Of course we do. We're leaving for the cabin on the 23rd. Meet us at my parents' house. You really don't mind? Mind? We've been hoping you'd come. I smiled for the first time all week. Thank you. No, Jessica replied warmly. Thank you for finally saying yes. When we ended the call, I realized something. Not everyone makes you earn a place at their table. Some people simply save you a seat. The morning of December 23rd finally arrived. The air outside was freezing. I packed my suitcase, loaded my car, and left work a little earlier than usual. Traffic was terrible. Everyone seemed to be rushing home for the holidays. Normally I would have been stressed. Instead, I felt peaceful. Every mile I drove felt like I was leaving years of guilt behind. Several hours later, I reached Jessica's parents' home in the mountains. The driveway was covered in fresh snow. Warm yellow lights glowed through the windows. The smell of pine trees filled the cold evening air. Before I even knocked, the front door opened. There she is, Jessica shouted. She pulled me into a hug so tight I almost laughed. Her parents welcomed me like they had known me forever. There were no awkward questions. No expectations. No requests. Just smiles. Her mother handed me a mug of hot chocolate. Her father carried my suitcase inside before I could even offer. That evening we played board games, laughed until our stomachs hurt, and shared stories around the kitchen table. I couldn't remember the last time I had laughed so freely. The next morning, we drove deeper into the mountains. The cabin looked like something from a holiday postcard. Snow rested on the roof. Smoke curled gently from the chimney. Tall pine trees surrounded us in every direction. Inside, the room smelled of cedar wood, cinnamon, and fresh coffee. Jessica showed me my bedroom. A soft quilt covered the bed. Large windows overlooked the snowy mountains. Everything felt peaceful. For the first time in many years, I wasn't preparing to serve everyone else. I was simply another guest. I sat near the fireplace, holding a warm cup of cocoa, and thought maybe this holiday would finally be different. Then, at exactly 3 o'clock that afternoon, my phone started ringing. I looked at the screen. Mom. I stared at her name for several seconds without answering. Somehow, I already knew this call wasn't going to be pleasant. I had just settled into a comfortable chair near the fireplace when my phone started ringing. The screen lit up with one word. Mom. Jessica looked over from the couch and smiled. Are you going to answer? I stared at the phone for a few seconds. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part of me knew this moment had been coming ever since I cancelled the catering order. I took a slow breath. I guess it's time. I answered the call. Hello. Madison. Mom almost shouted before I could say anything else. Where are you? Her voice sounded panicked. I could hear people talking loudly in the background. Someone was asking about dinner. Children were laughing. Plates were clattering. It was supposed to be here an hour ago, she continued. Everyone is waiting. Where are you? I looked through the cabin window. Snowflakes floated gently through the air. The mountains were peaceful. Inside, the fireplace crackled softly. It was the calmest I had felt in years. I'm not coming, Mom. There was complete silence. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then her voice became hard. What do you mean you're not coming? I mean exactly what I said. Stop joking. I'm not joking. You need to get here right now. No. Another long silence followed. I could almost picture the expression on her face. Confused. Angry. Shocked. She wasn't used to hearing that word from me. I know about your plan, I said quietly. My plan? I came by the house a few days ago. She didn't answer. I heard you talking to Aunt Carol. Still nothing. I heard you tell her that I would spend the whole holiday upstairs taking care of all the children while everyone else enjoyed themselves. Her breathing changed. For the first time, she realized I knew the truth. Madison, she finally said, you're completely misunderstanding the situation. No. You weren't supposed to hear that conversation. I heard enough. We only thought you could help for a little while. A little while? I couldn't help laughing. You planned to leave me alone with 9 children. They're family. So am I. She didn't answer. I wasn't invited because you wanted to spend time with me, I continued. I was invited because you needed free childcare. That's not fair. It is fair. You're overreacting. No, Mom. My whole life I've been told that helping family is important. It is. But somehow I'm always the one helping. She stayed quiet. I've spent years giving up my weekends. Silence. My money. Silence. My free time. Silence. My happiness. Still silence. I'm done. Then I remembered something. Oh, I added. Don't wait for the food. What? I cancelled the catering order. For a second, all I heard was complete chaos. Someone yelled in the background. A chair scraped across the floor. Then another voice suddenly came onto the phone. Laura. What is wrong with you? She shouted. I pulled the phone slightly away from my ear. What happened? I asked calmly. You cancelled dinner. Yes. 25 people are here. I know. We've got nothing to serve. I know. Do you realize how embarrassing this is? I smiled to myself. Now you know how embarrassing it feels to be treated like the family babysitter every single holiday. This isn't about babysitting. It isn't. No. Then why were you planning to leave me upstairs with all the kids? She didn't answer. Instead she changed the subject. You have no idea how difficult it is to raise children. You're right. You don't understand sacrifice. I probably don't. So stop acting like the victim. I looked around the cozy cabin. Jessica's mom was pulling fresh cookies out of the oven. Her dad was laughing at something on television. No one expected anything from me. No one was using me. I felt peaceful. I don't have children, I said calmly. And that means your children are not my responsibility. Before she could argue again, I ended the call. Jessica looked at me with wide eyes. That sounded serious. It was. Are you okay? I looked around the room. Warm lights. Snow outside. The smell of cinnamon and fresh cookies. People smiling because they wanted me there. For the first time in years, I answered honestly. I'm better than okay. She smiled. I think I finally chose myself. Without another thought, I turned my phone completely off. The rest of the evening was wonderful. We decorated cookies, played card games, watched old holiday movies, laughed until our stomachs hurt. Nobody asked me to clean up after everyone. Nobody handed me crying children. Nobody expected me to sacrifice my holiday. I wasn't the helper. I wasn't the babysitter. I was simply another person enjoying Christmas. The next morning, after breakfast, I finally switched my phone back on. It buzzed non-stop. Message after message appeared on the screen. 43 missed calls. More than 20 unread texts. Most of them were from my family. The first message was from Mom. Please call me immediately. The next one sounded less polite. Where are you? Then another. This is completely unacceptable. As I kept scrolling, the messages became even angrier. Laura wrote, I can't believe you did this to us. Another one followed. The kids were crying because dinner wasn't ready. Then another. We had to order fast food at the last minute. Mark even sent me a message. Laura is devastated. You really hurt everyone. Dad's message was the longest. The children were running through the house. Guests left early. Everything became a disaster because of your selfish decision. I read every single message. Then I looked up. Outside the cabin window, snow covered the trees like white blankets. Jessica's family was outside building a snowman. Her little nephew waved at me. Madison, come help us. Help. The word sounded different here. Nobody expected it. Nobody demanded it. They simply invited me. I smiled. I'm coming. I put my phone back into my pocket. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I actually laughed. While my family was blaming me for their ruined holiday, I was drinking hot chocolate with people who genuinely enjoyed my company. That was the biggest difference. Jessica's family wanted me there because they cared about me. My own family wanted me there because they wanted someone to make their lives easier. I realized something that day. Love and usefulness are not the same thing. For years, I had confused the two. I believed people loved me because they needed me. Now I understood the truth. The people who truly love you don't measure your worth by what you can do for them. I knew my family wouldn't let this go. They had controlled my life for too long. People don't usually give up that kind of control without a fight. Sure enough, 4 days after Christmas, there was a loud knock on my apartment door. Not a normal knock. It sounded angry. I looked through the peephole. Exactly who I expected. Mom. Dad. Laura. All three of them stood outside looking furious. I unlocked the door. Hi, I said calmly. Mom didn't return the greeting. She pushed past me and walked into my apartment without waiting for permission. Dad followed. Laura came in last and shut the door behind her. The room suddenly felt much smaller. Dad crossed his arms. We need to talk. I figured. I placed my coffee mug on the kitchen counter and faced them. Mom's eyes were red from crying. How could you do this to us? I stayed quiet. She continued. We had 25 people sitting at our table with nothing to eat. Dad shook his head. We looked ridiculous. Laura stepped closer. Mark's parents kept asking what happened. She folded her arms. They think we're completely irresponsible. And the children? Mom said dramatically. They were running all over the house. It was complete chaos, Dad added. I couldn't stop myself. A small laugh escaped. All three of them stared at me. What is so funny? Dad demanded. I looked directly at him. So you had to spend one holiday taking care of your own children. Nobody answered. You had to entertain them. Silence. You had to clean up after them. Silence. You had to miss relaxing because you were busy being parents. Laura looked offended. That's different. How? It just is. No, I replied. It's exactly the same thing I've been doing every weekend. Dad pointed a finger at me. Don't get disrespectful. I'm finally being honest. Mom's voice became softer. We're your family. I know. Family helps each other. I agree. But helping someone once in a while is very different from being expected to sacrifice my time, my money, and my holidays every single year. Nobody spoke. I continued. You weren't asking for help. They looked at me without saying a word. You had already decided what I was going to do. I looked at each of them one by one. You planned my holiday without asking me. I took a slow breath. I wasn't invited because you wanted to celebrate with me. I felt years of hurt finally leaving my chest. I was invited because you needed someone to watch the children and pay for dinner. For the first time since they arrived. None of them had an answer. I looked at all three of them, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of disappointing them. I was tired. Not just tired from work. Not just tired from babysitting. I was tired of spending years trying to prove that I deserved the same love and respect everyone else in the family received without question. I took a deep breath. You wanted me to pay for dinner for everyone, I said calmly. And after spending thousands of dollars, you expected me to stay upstairs all day taking care of 10 children while everyone else celebrated. Nobody denied it. You didn't invite me because you wanted to spend time with me. I looked at my mother. You invited me because you needed someone to make your holiday easier. Then I turned toward Laura. And you expected another free babysitter. Laura crossed her arms. So what? She snapped. Mark and I work hard every single week. We deserve one day to relax. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I pointed to myself. And I don't work hard. She rolled her eyes. That's different. How? You don't have children. There it is, I said quietly. That's always your answer. You have no idea how difficult it is to raise kids. I don't. Exactly. But they're still your responsibility, not mine. Laura's face turned red. They're your family. They're your children. The room became quiet. I reached for the red scarf resting on the back of my chair. It had belonged to my grandmother. Whenever life felt overwhelming, I held that scarf because it reminded me of her gentle voice. When I was younger, she once told me something I never forgot. Never let people make you disappear just to make their own lives easier. At the time, I didn't fully understand what she meant. Standing in my apartment that afternoon, I finally did. I wrapped the scarf around my hands and looked back at my family. You're right, I said. I don't have children. Laura looked satisfied for a second. Then I continued. Which means holidays are not supposed to be about me raising yours. Her smile disappeared. Holidays are supposed to be about families spending time together. I paused. But you never treated me like family. Nobody spoke. You treated me like unpaid help. Mom wiped away the tears on her face. Her sadness quickly turned into anger. Do you have any idea what you've done? She asked. Everyone thinks we were terrible hosts. She started counting everything that had gone wrong. Your Aunt Carol left early. Your Uncle Mike was embarrassed. Mark's relatives kept asking questions. People were whispering all evening. They'll never look at us the same way again. She looked at me as if I should feel guilty. Months ago. Years ago. I probably would have. But something inside me had changed. I looked directly into her eyes. I'm sorry your dinner fell apart. She looked hopeful for a second. Then I continued. But I'm not sorry I finally stood up for myself. Her face hardened. You ruined Christmas. No. I ruined your plan. Dad finally spoke. We're your parents. I know. You owe this family respect. I've always respected you. Then why did you humiliate us? I couldn't stay quiet anymore. For years I've spent almost every Saturday babysitting. Nobody answered. For years I've been expected to cancel my own plans. Silence. I've spent my money on family dinners. Silence. I've cleaned. Silence. I've cooked. Silence. I've watched children while everyone else laughed together. Still silence. And not once. My voice became softer. Not once did anyone ask me what I wanted. The room felt incredibly still. Even the heating system seemed louder than anyone breathing. Laura finally shook her head. You're acting like a victim. No. I'm finally telling the truth. Dad frowned. Family sacrifices for each other. I agree. But sacrifice should go both ways. I looked from one face to another. When was the last time any of you sacrificed something for me? Nobody answered. When was the last time you watched Laura's children so I could enjoy a weekend? Silence. When was the last time someone offered to help me after a stressful week at work? Silence. When was the last time anyone asked if I was happy? No one could answer. Because they already knew the truth. They never had. Mom folded her arms tightly. If that's really how you feel. She stopped for a second. Then maybe you shouldn't come to family gatherings anymore. I expected those words to hurt. Instead, I felt relief. I smiled gently. Okay. All three of them stared at me. Laura blinked. What? I said okay. So you're just walking away? I'm choosing peace. Mom looked shocked. You'd rather spend holidays alone? I'd rather spend them with people who actually want me there. Nobody said anything. They honestly believed I would panic. They thought I would apologize, beg, promise to do better. Instead, I calmly stood where I was. Laura's voice became quieter. You don't really mean this. I do. I'm done living like the family's unpaid babysitter. I'm done believing my time matters less than everyone else's. I'm done pretending this is normal. Mom's eyes filled with tears again. One day you'll regret this. When you're older. When you're lonely. You'll wish you hadn't pushed your family away. I smiled sadly. The only thing I regret, I paused, is that I didn't protect myself sooner. Dad sighed heavily. There's nothing more to say. He walked toward the door. Laura followed him. Mom stayed behind for one last moment. She looked around my apartment before meeting my eyes. When life gets difficult, don't expect us to rescue you. I nodded. I've already learned how to rescue myself. Without another word, she walked out. The front door closed. The sound echoed through my apartment. Then everything became quiet. I stood there for several minutes. No shouting. No guilt. No pressure. Just silence. I looked down at my grandmother's red scarf. I gently ran my fingers across the soft fabric. It reminded me that protecting my own peace wasn't selfish. Sometimes it was necessary. I picked up my phone. One by one, I blocked every number. Mom. Dad. Laura. For years I had been afraid of setting boundaries. Now I finally had. And I wasn't going to erase them. The next few weeks felt strangely peaceful. Every Saturday morning I woke up expecting someone to knock on my door. Nobody did. The silence felt unfamiliar at first. Then it became comforting. One Saturday I stayed in bed until almost 10. Another weekend I made pancakes just for myself. I drank coffee while watching snow fall outside my apartment window. No toys covered my floor. No cartoons played loudly in the background. No one expected anything from me. For the first time in years. My weekends actually belonged to me. Some relatives tried to contact me. An aunt called and said, "Your mother has been crying every day." A cousin told me, "You should apologize. Family is more important than pride." I gave everyone the same answer. I'm willing to talk when they're willing to admit they treated me unfairly. The conversation usually ended there. No one argued. No one apologized either. That told me everything I needed to know. Life slowly became lighter. I started spending more time with friends. I joined a weekend hiking group. I read books I'd been putting off for years. I even started dating again. That's how I met Daniel. A mutual friend introduced us over dinner. He was kind, funny, and easy to talk to. The best part was that when we spent time together, I wasn't constantly checking my phone, waiting for another family emergency that somehow became my responsibility. I could finally enjoy the moment. One evening we walked through a winter market filled with lights and music. Hot chocolate warmed my hands while snowflakes landed on my coat. Daniel smiled and asked, "You seem happier lately." I thought about that question. He was right. I was happier. Not because my life had become perfect, but because I had finally stopped living someone else's life. Whenever I doubted myself, I reached for my grandmother's red scarf. It had become more than a piece of clothing. It reminded me of the promise I had made to myself. Never disappear so someone else can be comfortable. About 2 months passed. The pain slowly became something different. It no longer felt like an open wound. It felt like a scar, still sensitive, but healed enough to remind me how strong I had become. Then one evening, while Daniel and I were finishing dinner at a small restaurant, my phone buzzed. The message came from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it. "We need to talk. It's Mom." I stared at the screen. For a moment, old habits returned. A part of me wanted to answer immediately. To apologize. To make peace. To become the old Madison again. Then I remembered every Saturday I had lost. Every holiday I had spent working while everyone else celebrated. Every time I had been made to feel guilty simply for wanting my own life. I looked at the red scarf folded beside my purse. It reminded me how far I had come. I locked my phone without replying. Maybe I would answer someday. Maybe I wouldn't. That decision finally belonged to me. The biggest lesson I learned wasn't about holidays or family dinners. It was about respect. Real family doesn't measure your love by how much you sacrifice. Real family doesn't make you earn your place. They don't use your kindness as an excuse to take advantage of you. Love should never feel like a full-time job. And the day I finally understood that was the day I truly became free. I turned off my phone and placed it on the table beside me. Then I leaned back in my chair and looked out the window. The city lights sparkled in the distance, and everything around me was quiet. For the first time in many years, that silence didn't scare me. It didn't make me feel lonely. Instead, it made me feel peaceful. There were no angry phone calls. No one was asking me for money. No one was knocking on my door with children they expected me to watch. No one was making me feel guilty for wanting my own life. I finally had something I hadn't had in a very long time. Freedom. I knew my journey wasn't over. Life would still have challenges. Maybe one day my family would understand how much they had hurt me. Maybe they wouldn't. I couldn't control their choices anymore. But I could control mine. For the first time, I was choosing myself without feeling guilty. I was ready to build a life where my happiness mattered just as much as everyone else's. Whatever happened next, it would be my decision. My future. My story. And this time, no one else would be writing it for me.